In this video, I'm going to show you how to complete the Excel Guided Project 1-3. Before we begin, let's talk about the instructions. It's best to download the instructions from SimNet. Even if you own a hard copy of the text, it's best to download the instructions from SimNet because it contains the latest and most up-to-date set of instructions. So let's begin with step 1. Step 1 says to open up the start file. That's what you see right here. It also says to click the Enable Editing button. If you see a yellow bar across the top portion of your screen, there should be an area that says Enable Editing. If you just double click that, it will allow you to edit this spreadsheet. Lastly, if your instructor tells you to rename the file, now's the time to do it. And it's also a good idea to save the file, put it somewhere where you know you can retrieve it later. So what I do is I head up to the uppermost left portion of the screen, click the Save button, and that completes step 1. Step 2, remove a split and freeze panes. Step 2A says click the Split button. And if you head up to the View tab up here, click on it, you'll see a button called Split. Select that. Next, 2B. It says click on cell A4 so you can see the letters across the top and the numbers along the left side. This tells you how to locate cells. In this case, it's telling me to click on A4, so I see column A and row 4, and I click on it. Next, 2C, it says click the Freeze Panes button. Once again, I'm up in this View tab up here, and I can see the area that says Freeze Panes. I click it. Next, I choose Free Panes. That's 2D. 2E says to scroll down to row 31. So let's head down to row 31. See it right here. And I'm going to click inside E31. And please note that since I have a printed copy of the instructions, I printed them out when they were downloaded. What I'm doing is checking off each item as I complete it. And it makes it much easier for me to follow the instructions and not miss anything. And I suggest you do the same. If you have an option to print the instructions, please do so and then check off each item as you complete them. So we are continuing with 2E. I've clicked on cell E31. 2F, type 3, and then pressed enter. Next, 2G, it says press Control plus Home. So please note that when you do this, you need to hold down the Control button and then also hit the Home button. So that's what I'm going to do right now. I'm holding them both down, and you can see how it moves up. And that completes step 2. Step 3, change the zoom size and unfreeze the pane. So in 3A, and once again I'm going over each step carefully and I am crossing them out as I complete them. Step 3A says click 100%, and that's in the View tab. I'm still in the View tab. If you're not there, get back to it. And then what we need to do is select 100%. You'll see it in the top menu. And you can see how that changes the view back to 100%. Next, 3B, it says click Freeze Panes button. Select that. And then choose 3C, says choose Unfreeze Panes. It unfreezes the panes. And now I'm going to click in cell A1. That's 3D, and that completes step 3. Step 4, we're going to check the spelling in the worksheet. So the first thing that we're going to do is select B4 through B11. And what I do is I click in cell B4, then I hold down my left mouse button, and that selects it all the way down to B11. Now, before I move on, I'd like to point something out to you. If you are newer with Excel, sometimes it gets a little bit confusing because you click in the wrong spot and then things start to happen. I'll give you an example. If you click on the edge of a cell, it does something different than if you click in the center where you see a big fat plus sign. Or if you happen to click in the lower right hand portion, you get something called the fill handle. It's a skinny little plus symbol. So there are different things that can happen when you click or point to and select different areas of a cell. That just takes a little bit of getting used to with Excel. That's one of the tricks, and that's why you need experience with this program. So let's continue on with step 4A. It says select B4 through B11. And that's what we're going to do right now. I'm just holding down my main mouse button, and I'm selecting through B11. One last point before I move on to the next step. Do you see how the first cell that we started on is not at all changed colors? It's not dark gray. That means that's where I began the selection. That happens anytime you begin to select an area. The first cell that you select will not be colored this dark gray. Just to note, it's selected. You can see that by the green outline, but that's where you began the selection process. So I just want to point that out. Next, we're going to click the spelling button. If you click on the review tab, and most Microsoft programs, Word, PowerPoint, Excel, has the review tab, and there's a spelling option up there. If you click on spelling, you can then spell check. In this case, we're going to spell check the selection. And the word that's misspelled is hiking. So we need to, this is 4C, we need to select change all. And by hitting change all, every instance that hiking was misspelled, it'll change it and correct it. If you just hit change, it would correct it one time. In this case, it changes them all in that selection. And then finally, it says your spell check is complete. You're good to go. I click OK, and that completes step 4. Step 5, we're going to use the fill handle to copy a formula. The fill handle is a really powerful part of Excel, so it's good that you're getting experience with it right now. It allows you to do so many things. So let's go over step 5 and talk about one of those things that the fill handle can do. In step 5A, it says click cell H4. So make sure you get the right cell. And I've selected it correctly. Once again, I'm going very slowly and literally crossing off items as I complete them. In 5B, it says click on the fill handle for this particular cell. So it's in the lower right hand portion, and you may not be able to see it that well on your screen, but when I hover over it and I have the fill handle, it's a solid line plus symbol. It's pretty small, but it's a solid black line. It's a plus symbol. And then in 5C, it says double click the fill pointer. And you can see how the formula is copied all the way down the entire column. You don't have to manually do the formula for each row. It does it for the entire column. And this is one of the powerful features of the fill handle. There's several powerful features, and this is one of them right here. Next, it says click on Control and then Home. I'm going to hold them both down at the same time. And it brings us back up to cell A1. And this completes step 5. Step 6, it says click on the Themes button. So once again, I am looking up at the top, and I see the button that says Page Layout, the tab that says Page Layout. And we need to choose in the Themes group, and what they mean by groups is this is a group, this is a group, this is a group, and the group name is at the bottom. We're looking for the Themes group. So I choose all the themes, and then I have to find Ion, and I can see it right here. So I click on it, and that completes step 6. Step 7, merge and center the titles. The merge and center feature is a really powerful feature in Excel. It allows you to easily combine cells or merge them, and then you can center items in there. And this is a great thing to do if you're going to put a title over top of your worksheet. Let's show you an example. In 7A, it says select cells A1 through J1. Now it's very important that you're in the first cell on the left. And you can see it here, but you can also see towards the upper left-hand portion of the screen, it says cell A1. If I were in B1, it would say it up there. I'm going to click on A1, and then I'm making sure I'm in the center. I'm selecting all of the cells in that row all the way over to J1, and I'm just triple checking to make sure that I have it. Next, we need to hit the merge and center button. Now for this particular button, we need to head back over to the home tab, and towards the center portion of your screen in the alignment group, you'll see merge and center. And if you click it, it works. I just want to click on the drop down so you can see the different choices you have. You have merge and center, merge across, and merge cells and unmerge them. So if you ever wanted to unmerge cells, this is how you do it. But in this particular case, we're just going to make sure that we select merge and center, which is the first choice. And all those cells are now one big fat wide cell with the text being right dead center in the middle. And this is a great way to center things. Step 7B says to do the same thing with cells A2 through J2, being sure that you're on cell A2. Don't click on B2. Make sure you're on B or A2. Make sure you're on A2, the leftmost cell. Select them all over to J2, and then hit the merge and center button, and you'll have successfully merged those cells as well. And that completes step 7. Step 8, apply cell styles and adjust the row height. So let's go very slowly here. 8A, we're going to select cell A1. And it really, in this case, even though I'm clicking exactly where it should be, since we've merged and centered them, this whole area up here is A1. So I'm selected in A1. And you can tell I'm in A1 because it says it up here. And the dark green outline outlines that cell. Next, we need to click the Cell Styles button. Need to be on the Home tab. If you moved off of the Home tab, get back on it. And then in the Styles group over here, we need to click the More button. It's this little down arrow right here. It gives us all of the choices. We need to select the title choice. And it's one of the first ones. So we click Title. Once again, I'm crossing off each item as I complete them. That's why I'm taking my time. Next, it says select cell A2. You can see I selected cell A2. And I need to apply the heading 4 style. So I'm going to look for that here. And it says heading 4, and I wait for it to appear underneath it just to verify that it is indeed heading 4. And that completes 8B. 8C, it says click the font style arrow. And I'm going to choose 14 for that. It overwrites the font size for that particular cell style. You can see that it bumped it up a little bit. That's 8C. 8D, it says point to row 1. I'm going to click right over the number on the left hand side, and then I'm going to hold my mouse button down. I'm going to drag over 1 and 2. It's going to select both rows 1 and 2. Then I'm going to head up to the Format button. It's in the upper right hand portion of the screen. Going to select row height. And 8F, I need to type in 22. I can press OK, but I'm going to do enter. I'm going to follow the instructions exactly as they did it. And you can see how the row height changed just a little bit. Next, I need to select cells A3 through J3. So I'm clicking in cell A3, and it wants me to select all the way over to J3. Then I'm going to use the Cell Styles Gallery up here. Always like to open it up just to see all the choices. In this particular one, it says select 40% accent 3. And I am going to make sure that I am on the right one. So give me a second here. And it's right here. Excellent. Apply bold. Click on the B in the font groups. And that completes step 8I. 8J, it says click on the row 3 heading. You can see how it selects the entire row right there. In 8K, it says point to the bottom border of the row to resize it. And what we want to do is we want to drag it, make it a little bit thicker, a little bit wider, if you'd say. And you can see when I hover in between the 3 and the 4, the mouse, the pointer changes a little bit. It's going to be a horizontal black line with 2 arrows pointing up and down. That's what I want. And then if I hold down the mouse button, I can actually drag that bigger or smaller. In this case, it's saying drag it to 21.00 or 28 pixels. I'm just going to take my time and do that. Sometimes it takes a steady hand to get there. When I have it, you can see how it makes it just a little bit bigger. And then next, it says click the zoom out so you can see in the status bar, if necessary, so you can see all the rows. I think you can see all those, but I could easily zoom in if I like. But in this case, I'm zooming out so I can see all of the columns and rows. And that completes step 8. Step 9, we're going to change the alignment and some format values. And this is a very important step because it teaches you how to make your work look good. It's not just good enough to put in the correct data, but you have to make it look presentable. And some of the features that we're going to go over in the next few minutes will show you how to do exactly that. So once again, I'm going slowly and clicking off or crossing off items as I complete them. So in step 9A, it says select cells D4 through F39. I'm just going to bump this up and make it just a little bit bigger. Hopefully you can see that. So D4, column D4 right there. And with the plus button, it looks rather fat. That means you're in the center of the cell. I can now use the selection feature and I can select all the way down through F39. Crossing that out. In 9B, it says hit the center button, home tab, alignment group, center, and you can see how it centers it. Next, it says select G4 through H39, G4 through H39. And it says click the accounting number format button. So about in the center of the screen up here, you can see the numbers grouping. And one of the choices, if you hover over, is the accounting number format. I just simply need to click it and it'll apply the number formatting to this particular set of cells that were selected. Now please note, if you can see these symbols in these cells right here, it's very important to note that the numbers didn't actually go away. What this means is it means the column's just a little bit too narrow, and in a couple steps here we're going to correct that. But I've had students redo projects 3, 4, 5, 6 times because these number symbols appear, and that just means columns are a little bit narrow and they need to be widened. So don't worry about it if you ever see that. You just need to widen the column, and we're going to do that in 4 or 5 steps. So let's continue with what we're doing. Next, we need to select, this is 9E, cells A3 through J39, A3 through J39. Basically, it's everything but the title and the subtitle. Next, we need to click the Borders drop-down arrow. And you can see that up here. And we need to select all borders. Now please note, and this can be a little bit confusing if you are new at Excel, just because you see these grayed out cell lines over here, when you go to print, they don't necessarily print. You have to have borders between your cells if you want them to print. And one way to do that is exactly what we just did. We click on the borders button and then we select, in this case, all the borders are selected. So just be sure you understand that with Excel. Next, it says while the cells are selected still, we're going to bump it up to 12 font size. Moving down to 9H, we're going to select B4. So let's head down to B4, all the way down to C39. That's C39. We're going to increase the indent in the alignment group up here, still in the Home tab. If you hover over all the choices, one of them says increase indent. You can see it just moves it away from the cell edges just a little bit. Makes it a little bit easier to read. And that completes 9H, 9I. Click and drag to select columns A through J. Now this is important that you understand how to do this. If you want to select the entire column, you need to be up here where the letters are. So I'm clicking on the A itself, then I'm holding down the mouse button, and I'm dragging it all the way over J, and that'll select everything in that entire column, all the way down to infinitum. It'll select it all. And then next, it wants us to double click the border in between columns J and K. And honestly, it doesn't matter between which letters you select. Since we've selected this entire area, if you hover in between any of the letters, we're going to do exactly what the instructions say here, but I'm just letting you know it doesn't matter between what letters you select. Between J and K, you can see how the pointer changes when it turns into that dark vertical line with the arrows going out from the sides. If you double click that, all of the columns are widened. It's called autofit, and what it does is it goes down and reads all of the information, all the cells in all the columns, and it makes the columns exactly as wide as they need to be, not any wider, but not any smaller or narrow either. It's called the autofit, and this is a great way to make sure that all of your data is easily read when you go to print it or look at it. In 9K, we're going to select and center align the labels in row 3. So we're going to click on row 3. I'm going to click on the number 3 right there. I'm going to click center. And that's going to make everything nice. And that completes step 9. Step 10, insert a column and fill data. So the first thing that we need to do in 10A is head up to column B. I'm just going to click on the B there to select the row. And then I'm going to right click, and one of the choices says insert. And you can see how a new column, a fresh column, is inserted just to the left. And that completes step 10B. In cell B3, it's right up there. I'm going to type in exactly what it says in your instructions. Just question mark. Enter. In B4, I'm going to type no, and I'm going to do it just like the instructions say with a capital N and then the lowercase o. Enter. And then that was B5. We typed in no, and B6 we're going to type in yes, capital capitalize the Y, enter. Next it says select B4, not B3, but B4 through B6. And we're going to click the indent button twice. Increase indent. It's up here, remember before in the alignment tab. Hit it twice, 1, 2. Gets it off of that border. Going to cross that off so I know I've completed that step. That's 10G. And with cells B4 through B6, that's what the colon means, through. Select it, B4 through B6. Select it. I'm next going to double click the fill handle. Remember, that's in the lower right hand portion of any cell or any selected set of cells. It's the skinny little plus, it's the black plus sign in the lower right hand portion. Make sure it's on that. Once I have that, I'm going to double click and you can see how it fills in the data. And in 10I, it says select A4 through A39. It's A4 all the way through A39, just double checking to make sure that I'm doing it right. It says to increase the indent, so I'm going to do it one time. See how it moves it off of the border there just a little bit. And then lastly, in 10J, it says hit Control and Home. Hopefully you know how to do this. Brings us back up to A1. And that completes step 10. Step 11, rename the sheet. This is another valuable item to know about Excel. Since this whole thing that you see is a workbook, you're only looking at one sheet right now, but you could have multiple sheets, just like in any workbook. When you open it up, you probably have multiple sheets in there. You're looking at sheet 1. How do you know that? In the lower left-hand portion of the screen, you see sheet 1. If you click the plus button, do not do it right now, but if you did, you can open up more sheets. It's also a good idea, and we're going to follow the instructions verbatim here. We're going to rename the sheet so we know exactly what it is, and you always want your audience, your boss, your teacher, whoever it is, to know exactly what the sheets mean. So if they ever tell you to rename the sheet, what you do is you hover over the word sheet, in this case sheet 1, and then you just do a quick double click. It turns it all dark gray, and then you can simply rename it. In this case, they want us to call it inventory. And then you can click anywhere else, but it says to press enter, and it'll lock it into place. And now sheet 1 is called inventory. And that completes step 11. Step 12, use page layout view to insert a footer. So the first thing we need to do is make sure we select the page layout button. And the status bar is in the lower right hand portion of the screen. It's a little bit hard to see on the video here, but it's the choices in the lower right hand portion of the screen. This should be on normal view. This is the most common view that people see, but you can also, and I'm following the instructions here, we want to put it on page layout view, which is the one just to the right of it. Make sure it says page layout. And now we can see how it looks on each individual page if it were printed. Next, it says click the center header section, and that's up here. So I'm in the header area. It says the header and footer tools design tab is active, and that is true. You can see how this new tab is now active. If I click off of that, it's not there, but if I click back on, it's there. And we need to go to the button over here that says go to footer, and that'll head all the way down to the footer. Make sure it's on the center footer area. That's important. Make sure it's on the middle section. Next, this is step 12F. We need to click on file name, and it puts in a little bit of code right there. And the reason why you would do this, other than typing in the file name. While you might know exactly what the file name is, if you ever change the file name, it wouldn't necessarily change it in the footer. But if you put in this bit of code, anytime the file name is changed, it'll change it here in the footer. And that's why most professional documents use this method versus just typing in the file name. So then next it says click anywhere in the worksheet so you can see the file name in there. You're just clicking out of the header and footer area, and then you can see that the file name is indeed in there. Lastly, in 12H, it says select the normal view. Heading down to the status bar again in the lower right hand portion of the screen, I click normal, and then I'm going to hold down control button and hold down the home key, and it'll send us back up to the first cell, which is A1, to the top of this. And that completes step 12. Step 13. We're almost done, folks. Hang in there. Step 13 says change the page setup options. So let's start with 13A. It says click the page layout tab. It's up in the top. There's the tab page layouts. Once again, I'm crossing off each item as I complete it. We need to now select or click the page setup launcher. What that means is in the lower right hand portion of all these groupings, there's a little button. That's the launcher button. You can see it next to most of them. In this case, I'm clicking that little launcher button, and it gives us a few more options. And one of the choices, this is 13B, it says to select landscape. You know what landscape is, I'm sure, versus portrait. Next, it says select fit to. A radio button is a little round button. It's usually round, and it gives you choices. And it says make sure that it's 1 page wide by 1 page tall. If it's not, you can make sure it says that. Then click OK. And that completes step 13. Step 14. It says select cells A1 through K11. Now please note that we're not selecting the entire worksheet here. I'm just heading down to K11, so it's the top third approximately. Next, we need to select the page layout tab. Make sure it's on the page layout tab. In 14C, it says click the print area button. There's a little drop down next to it, and one of them says set print area, and I select that. 14D has us hit the control button in home. It sends it back home. Next, it says click the file tab, upper left hand most tab, I'm sure, on your screen, and select the print button to preview things. And if your instructor happens to tell you to print it, this would be the time to print it, but it doesn't say so in the instructions. So we're not going to do that. You may not have a printer hooked up. So just follow the instructions exactly as it says, unless your instructor tells you to do otherwise. The last point here, it says click the back arrow up in the upper left hand portion of the screen. Gets us back out to the normal view. Step 15 says click the save button. I'm going to click the save button up there. And the print area is also saved. Step 16 has us close the workbook. Step 17 has us upload and save the project file into SimNet. And then lastly, step 18 has you submit the project for grading. Good luck, everybody.